What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Locked On Badgers, New Year's edition. Happy New Year's, everybody. I hope everyone had a safe, happy holiday. We're going to look back at 2022, where I was most wrong. What did I completely whiff on with my Badgers takes? We're going to talk about that, plus some of the stuff I got right on today's Locked On Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. This is kind of a pop-up live show, so I don't know how many people are going to be watching, but if you have comments, if you have thoughts on this one, I want this to be kind of a fun show. Let me know what your biggest misses and hits of the year were in terms of your Badger predictions. So we all got some. And one of the things we try to do on this show, I've talked about it, is be authentic, right? And if you're going to be authentic, you're going to have real takes. You're going to get some wrong. And I want to own those, because otherwise, what's the point of being authentic if we're not going to come back and say, yeah, I whiffed on those. So this is going to be the where Ryan was wrong show, what I got right show, and we're going to talk about it. But I'd love to see your guys, y'all, what did you hit on? What did you miss on this year with Badgers football and basketball? So we're going to talk about that, plus get some predictions for 2023. But first, today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. I also want to apologize really quick. This show is coming out later than it should have. I had some technical difficulties yesterday, so that's why this show is just kind of middle of the day random, and there wasn't one released this morning. The goal is always to release one every morning, but sometimes technical difficulties come up. And with that, let's just get into my biggest misses of the year. This is a sampling, right? I definitely had some. So number 5, Johnny Davis. I had predicted Johnny Davis would be right off the bat, a good like 6th, 7th man off the bench in the NBA. I thought the two-way ability would translate. I thought he would play hard enough. He's kind of a team guy, a culture guy. I thought he would give enough to be like a 6th or 7th man off a bench, especially for a team that isn't that great. With Washington. And boy, did I whiff on that one. And I wish I was wrong. I wish I nailed it, because I love Johnny Davis. And the book isn't written on him, right? Like, we all know better than most as Badger fans what he did from his freshman year at Wisconsin to his sophomore year. But he's been brutal for Washington. Nagging injuries haven't helped. He had some knee tendonitis. I think he had a foot injury as well. But even when he's been healthy, they sent him down to the G League. This is a lottery pick. Like, your expectations, if you're a lottery pick, are pretty high. They sent him down to the G League, and even in the G League, he hasn't been good. Like, 4 turnovers a game in the G League against 2 assists a game, shooting 28% from 3 in the G League. Ugh, yikes. So that was a miss. That was a miss, Ryan. Number 4, I took the over on Wisconsin this year win-loss record. And for those who used to listen to my old show on the BuckyCast, I took the over last year as well. So that's 2 years in a row, by the way. I have miserably flamed out on taking the Wisconsin over. The over this year was, I believe it was 8.5. It was over quick. Like, you felt really quickly there's no chance that this over is going to hit. So at least there was no suspense with it. But another swing and a miss by Ryan here. And I really thought the schedule wasn't that daunting, right? Like, because I want to also give you all, and then I want to get into your comments. Again, I want your misses this year. What did you miss on? What did you hit on? And then I want to give you some rationale behind why I had these takes as well. Like, I really thought the schedule wasn't that crazy. I didn't anticipate an Illinois pop-up. I thought we'd beat Minnesota. I didn't think we'd lose at home to Washington State. And then halfway through the year this year, I said, there is no way next year. I don't care what excitement happens in the offseason. There's no way I'm taking the over again on Wisconsin. No way. Absolutely not. And then they went and hired Luke Fickell. And I can promise y'all, I already am taking the over next year on Wisconsin again. They've sucked me in. Just when I was about to break out of the Wisconsin bias homer takes, they sucked me right back in. And some comments here. Darren Wyman says, yeah, it hurts to see Johnny Davis struggle. Yeah, I hear you, man, Darren. I hear you. Mike, our Mr. Pinopster says, miss. Wisconsin wins the Big Ten West. And that goes in with my miss as well, because I had Wisconsin taking the over and winning the West. I didn't even talk about the West because if you can't get the over, you're certainly not winning the West. But yeah, that was all part of my Wisconsin prediction this year. I thought we would win, take the over, we'd win 9-ish games, and we would absolutely win the West, and we'd beat Minnesota. All of those big time misses on my part. Doggone it. Let's see. Lockdown Auburn says, does it hurt being so handsome? Yeah, nobody has ever said that to me, Zach. So I appreciate it. Let's keep going. Number 3 on my misses category here is Bobby Ingram being brought in to revamp the offense. I really thought that Paul Chryst was hiring Bobby Ingram to listen. I didn't expect air raid like at all. I expected a revamping of Wisconsin's archaic offense, of more unpredictable play calling. And instead, what we got was just an extension of Paul Chryst, right? What we got was just more of the same. And it was so frustrating to me because, again, nobody expected Bobby Ingram to come in here and implement like the Andre Ware 1991 offense where you threw for 45 touchdowns. But we did expect unpredictable play calling. We did expect somebody to come in and, at least throw on first down, play action, utilize playmakers a little bit more. And we just never got it. That was a big miss on my part. I really thought that would happen. I really thought that we would see, and that fed into my optimism for the year. I thought we would see Paul Chryst becoming more of a CEO type head coach, letting Bobby Ingram run a newer version of the power offense, and it'll all click, right? Because I think Paul Chryst can actually be a good CEO coach. He can't be a good offensive coach anymore. But that did not happen. All right, number 2 on my miss list. And listen, this is just a sampling. There's more out there. I'm just doing 5 of my biggest misses, 5 of my biggest hits. Certainly you can dive back into the records and find more misses on my part. But again, that's what we want to do on the show. We want to be authentic and we want to own the receipts, good and bad. So, and we're going to get to y'all comments too, because there's a lot of good stuff. You guys are right in line with me on some of the Paul Chryst, Bobby Ingram stuff. All right, number 2, I thought there was no way, absolutely no way, no chance, never going to happen. Chris McIntosh, a disciple of Barry Alvarez, a Wisconsin dude, I thought there was zero chance he would take rash action. Not even rash. I shouldn't say rash because I like it. Rash kind of denotes something that feels like it shouldn't have been done. It was done without thought. I just thought there was no chance Chris McIntosh would take dramatic and decisive action in the middle of the season. I said, no way. No way Paul Chryst is even on the hot seat this year because it's Wisconsin, because Chris McIntosh is a Wisconsin guy. We don't do stuff like this. And listen, I had said if this season goes down the tank, like you got to look at Paul Chryst critically. You got to really say we might need to move on. But I also couch that by saying, but we're not going to because Chris McIntosh is a Wisconsin guy and they're buddies. And I was completely wrong. I completely whiffed on that one. Zero chance, I said. And yeah, as you saw, like middle of the season, Chris McIntosh took that action. So, big miss. And I think most people had a similar thought process, though, because we almost have a bit of a Stockholm syndrome with Wisconsin, where we've been conditioned to be overly conservative in our expectations and how we do business and the speed in which we act on things. And we've seen it with recruiting departments, NIL, coaching hires, facility upgrades. Like it's just been a successive series of conservative actions from the athletic department for the most part, which hasn't always been bad, by the way. I've talked about this. There's good and bad with that, right? But yeah, I did not see that coming, and I said as much on the show. P says, I underestimated Mac. Yeah, same. That was I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I completely looked at Chris McIntosh, and I never gave it the critical thought I should have in thinking this might be just a completely different type of dude. And that was a miss on my part. All right, number 1. This one's cringy. This one's cringy. I hate that I have this. I had this take preseason now, but listen, part of this is just owning the receipts, right? Before the season, I did a Big Ten coach ranking show, and I got a couple really good hits out of that, by the way. I'm going to get into that in the next segment, but I had Paul Chryst as the 3rd best coach in the Big Ten. And listen, that ages really poorly when that coach gets fired like 5 games into the season, right? That is a terrible take looking back at it. Now, if we're going to be honest, like I had reasons for it. The dude won like 70% of his games, right? He had showed, in my opinion, that he could recruit or elevate recruiting. And P says, ouch. Yeah, that's a bad take, y'all. But he had showed that he could elevate recruiting. I thought for the most part, I really liked his ability to make hires until kind of this offseason. Some of the offseason stuff this year was really bad, but that's a bad take. Looking back at it, that's obviously a very, very bad take. So those are my 5 biggest misses this year, right? Johnny Davis being able to step in right away. Be it not a star, certainly not. I never predicted that off the bat, but certainly a valuable depth player. I expected to take the over, win the West, beat Minnesota. None of that happened. That's an 0 for 3. Certainly Bobby Ingram, I thought, would come in and really invigorate the offense, and that didn't happen. I had no chance of Chris McIntosh doing what he did. And then I had Paul Chryst obviously way, way, way too high in my coaching tier ranking. So those are my misses. Coming up, let's get into something that might be a little more enjoyable for me, maybe a little less enjoyable for y'all. I do have some hits. We're going to talk about that. And then I'm going to get into your comments. I want all your hits and misses too. We're going to roll through those as well. I'm really excited to see where you guys were dead on and where you guys were off. Yeah, so this is going to be a fun show both ways. But first, today's show is brought to you by our friends over at LinkedIn. And LinkedIn has you covered this season, which is all your hiring small business needs. And as a small business owner, hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. Listen, it's something I've told y'all. It's something I've used. I use it to really build my professional network, people that I can reach out to when I run into issues with what I'm doing professionally in my IT work, right? How did you solve this problem? Or do you know someone who has experience in this venue? And so it's something I've used just to build my professional network. It's something our company uses to screen out qualified and unqualified candidates for jobs we have. It helps you quickly attract qualified candidates. There's targeting tools, screening tools, and they have 875 million member profiles. So it's the largest professional network in the world. And it's why small businesses continue to rank LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockdowncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockdowncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, I want to thank everybody again for tuning in to Locked On Badgers, making this one of your first listens every day. When you're done here, go check out Locked On Sports Today. All the biggest sports stories, news in one spot, like only the Locked On Network can provide, available wherever you get your podcasts. All right, y'all, let's get into something that might be a little more fun for me. But no, this is all fun for me. Like, listen, you're never going to bat 100, right? And if you can't go back and say, these are the ones I messed up on, this is why I thought it, and I'm going to try to get better. If you can't go back and do that, then what's the point of having any type of original take, right? All right, so let's get into some of the hits, and then I'm going to get into all your comments, maybe even talk a little bit about what we expect in 2023, make some big guesses and projections and predictions so we can get some more stuff right and wrong. But let's go. Number 5 on the where I got stuff right. I had Cole LaCrue and Ryan Brown on the show early on. Neither had any D1 offers. And I remember on both shows, I was like, these guys are D1 dudes. Why don't they have offers? Where are they? The film is great. They're both winners. They're both intelligent. They can both break down film. They both have enough size and athleticism. Lo and behold, Ryan Brown, middle season Purdue. Wisconsin obviously ends up with Cole LaCrue. Awesome. I love it. Not just because both of those cats are really fun to talk to, like they're really good dudes, but also because like they were obviously D1 dudes and I couldn't understand what schools were waiting for. So definitely got that one right. And I'm excited about that one because it's really easy to cheer for both of those guys as well. When you dig into their journey, they're very easy players to cheer for. So even a guy like Ryan Brown going to Purdue, outside of when we play the Boilermakers, I hope he crushes it there because he's a great kid. And then obviously Cole LaCrue's been on the show 3 times. Really, really fun dude to talk to. So excited about that one. Let's go into my next hit here. So this was kind of a controversial before the season. I'm just take a quick drink here. Still battling my cold a little bit. This thing won't go away. But before the season, I had said, and some takes I don't love giving the take because I hope I'm wrong. But before the season, there was a lot of hype about Chucky Hepburn kind of becoming this incredible scoring star, maybe the best point guard in the Big Ten. And he's a really good player. Don't get me wrong. Don't misquote me here. But I said, I think he's going to struggle scoring a little bit inside the perimeter because last year, the best perimeter defenders were always guarding Johnny Davis, right? And now all of that attention is going to shift to Chucky. And Chucky, at the end of the day, has a ton of strengths, but he's also a little undersized and he's not a great athlete. I think he's going to struggle finishing at the rim. And I think we've seen that. I think we've seen some scoring inconsistencies and struggles. And people have attributed it to a slump or he just needs to be on better balance. I think a lot of that, I think people are overlooking the obvious here, and that is bigger, longer defenders are now guarding him. Defenses are geared towards stopping him. Whereas last year, he was the third option, right? Behind Wall, behind Davis. He's not that guy anymore. He's with him and Wall, he's the number one option. And he's the number one perimeter option. So if you're playing Wisconsin, how are you guarding them if you have a 6'5 defensive dynamo? You're putting him on Chucky Hepburn. It's a lot harder, right? That doesn't mean Hepburn's having a bad year. I think he's having the year I thought that he would have. So yeah, I think I hit on that one. Here's a good one. Very early on, I was doing a show with Dylan Graff. Very, 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 very early on, I was doing a show with Dylan, and we were talking about Connor Essegian, right? And Dylan's great. Dylan's coming on the show today, by the way, I think. Badger Notes. He's a great dude. But I was doing a show. We were talking about Connor, and I told him Connor's going to play more this year than anybody thinks. And Dylan disagreed with me a little bit. Again, Dylan gets plenty right, too. But I said he's going to play, I think I said over 10 minutes. I mean, he's crushed that. But I said the shooting, the touch, the offensive ability, this team needs it. He's going to play a lot. He's going to be much better than people realize much quicker. I absolutely nailed that take. Now, Justin, who's on the show a lot, he went even beyond that. Like, he was the ultimate Connor truther. So he absolutely crushed that as well. But the Locked On Badgers podcast network here, the channel we've been Connor truthers way before that hype train got started. So I hope y'all bought tickets on that early because we've been rolling with that for a while now, and we were dead right. All right, number 2. Here's the other one. This was in the offseason. We brought in, and I talked about, I really like the Bobby Ingram hire, right? And the rest of it, I talked in the offseason. I said, this doesn't make sense how they've aligned these people, right? You're trying to fix an offense by moving Chris Herring to tight ends. He's never coached or played tight ends. By moving Al Johnson to coach running backs. That doesn't make any sense. And your quarterback coach is going to be Bobby Ingram, who hasn't done it either. I thought none of that made sense. I said this might not work because these guys don't know what they're doing at these positions. And I got a lot of pushback from people saying, well, good coaches can coach. I'm like, sure, but it takes time. Like, Al Johnson's not going to step in right away and be a great running backs coach. It's not how this works. You need hours and reps and time. And I think I was dead right on that. I think maybe if these coaches had multiple years to grow into it, maybe they become really good coaches. But I think you saw issues on offense all year. I thought you saw a step back from Braylon Allen. None of it made sense. You tried to fix an offense by putting people who've never coached in these positions into spots and expecting them to perform right away when they were under pressure, because you had to fix this offense. And yeah, I think I was dead right on that one. None of that made any sense. And with the Ingram hire, what I'd said, just to rehash it, he was a great tight ends coach in Baltimore. Bring him in, let him be the OC tight ends coach, right? Then instead of moving Chris Herring over, which is nonsense, bring in a quarterbacks coach. And then an actual running backs coach. And then you have something that makes sense, right? You can have an actual guy working with quarterbacks who's experienced. You can have an actual running backs coach working with the running backs. And Bobby Ingram is a legit tight ends coach. It drove me nuts how Paul Chryst organized that. It didn't make any sense, and it didn't work. Shocking, right? I mean, I think a lot of us saw that one coming. All right, here's the first one. Absolutely crushed this take. I absolutely crushed this take. And so many people in the media were on the other side of this. When Chris McIntosh made his move, which again, I was wrong on. I whiffed on that one. But then everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, I don't want to speak for everybody. A lot of people, both in the media and the fan base, and I got a lot of pushback on this. I got people on Twitter calling me an idiot, calling me ridiculous, saying, why do you even have a show with this take? I said, don't name Jim Leonhard the head coach until the end of the year if you're going to do it. There is no reason, absolutely none, to take the interim tag off. And I said, for multiple reasons. I said, A, Jim Leonhard's not going anywhere. B, you don't know who might be interested in the job. Swing for the fences. C, Wisconsin is a big-time program. There's going to be real dudes interested that have head coaching experience, right? And I listed off Fickell, Rule, Aranda. And D, you might as well see everything that Jim Leonhard has. Make a decision with as much information as you possibly have. Absolutely crushed that take. I nailed that one. Because there really was. There's so many people that were saying, who else is Wisconsin going to get? And I'm like, Wisconsin's a real good program in one of the two, only between the SEC and the Big Ten, only two real conferences matter anymore, right? Like, why would you rush this? Take your time. And they're like, well, Jim Leonhard's a Wisconsin guy. I'm like, so what? I mean, I love Jim Leonhard, but if being a Wisconsin guy is more important than hiring the right guy, there's a problem here. And again, Chris McIntosh crushed this. I mean, I'm lauding myself for this take, but Chris McIntosh is the one with the machismo and the guts and the foresight to pull it off, right? He absolutely crushed this. So, yeah, those are my 5 big wins of this year. I had my 5 big misses. Ryan Brown, Cole Crew, both D1 dudes. Chucky Hepburn was going to struggle more this year against better defenses geared to stop him. Connor Siege and Truther right here. Coaching hires on the offensive side made no sense at the time. I said as much when it happened. And then it always made sense to wait to see who you might be able to hire. Despite what the majority of Wisconsin media, bloggers, Twitter was saying, it made sense to wait. There was no reason to rush that. It drove me nuts when people were talking about we need to give him the coach. We need to do it. We need to do it. We need to do it because we need to save the recruiting class. One class doesn't make or break a program, y'all. The wrong coaching hire will make or break a program. So, just for the record, too, I don't think I don't think Jim Leonhard would have broke the program. I didn't mean to word it like that. My bigger point on that was take your time. Find the absolute best coach available. And Chris McIntosh did that. So, all right, coming up, I'm going to get your takes and misses. We're going to go through the comments. Where were you right? Where were you wrong? And maybe even make a couple 2023 predictions. Really appreciate everybody tuning in. Again, an impromptu show. I apologize I didn't get this out earlier. Some technical difficulties, but we're going to get into your takes next on Locked On Badgers. But first, today's show is brought to you by our friends over at BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more odds, props, lines than ever before. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. Pro football to college, the bowl season going on, basketball World Cup, UFC, racing. It's all there at betonline.net. Plus, live casino games, blackjack, roulette. If you love sports podcasts, you can find those on BetOnline as well. It's the fastest and easiest way to get all your betting info. I do, like I said, I've talked about it a lot. I do a lot of futures betting, live in-game betting. It just makes it all more exciting. Do it responsibly, but head to the website today. Use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Again, really do appreciate everybody tuning in, making this one of your first listens every day. This community we've built. 2022 was a great year for this channel, and I'm hoping 2023 can be even better. We have some really fun stuff in the works, even getting together with some people, maybe doing like a live show, more giveaways. It's going to be exciting. A bunch of great guests coming up this week as well. We're going to continue breaking down some of the Wisconsin incoming transfers, the defensive back to quarterback. So a lot coming up this week. All right, let's get into some comments now. Let's get y'all's hits and misses. Preston Brodsner. At the beginning of the year, I was hoping for the playoff or at the very least the Rose Bowl. Yeah, I mean, listen, I didn't have my sights set that high, but I certainly thought we'd be much better. So I'm right there with you on this. Brad, his miss. Jim Leonhard was the only option to be head coach. A lot of people were there, Brad. A lot of people, for some reason, and Brad, this is absolutely not a shot on you. A lot of people were there. Think Wisconsin, I think, is a smaller fish than they are. Like Wisconsin is, I think, a sleeping giant is a word that gets overused a lot. I would say underutilized, maybe that's not even the right word, but I've often thought Wisconsin doesn't get as much out of its program as it could. And I think we're starting to see other people agree with that, right? Like Luke Fickell's not coming here if he thinks Wisconsin isn't a big time potential power play. So I'm excited about that. Michael Pinepunster, again, if I mispronounce that, my bad. His miss was Wisconsin would make a deep run in the 2022 NCAA tournament. Listen, that could have happened, right? If Hepburn didn't get hurt, that could have happened. So I don't know if that's a huge miss. You can't predict injuries, but some of that's a depth thing too, right? And we knew going into that the depth wasn't very good. By the way, the depth isn't very good this year either, which is why I don't think we're going to make a deep run this year, by the way. We may not get into that on this show, but yeah, no, once he gets hurt, or Hepburn gets hurt, there's really nothing you can do about that. Michael again comes in and says his hit was Paul Chryst was going to get fired soon after the OSU game. That's a great hit, Michael. Or Mitchell, sorry. That's a great hit because I was not on that. A lot of people weren't. So excellent job there. Let's keep going here. Ethan Henutza said Wisconsin underperformed for the first 6 weeks under Jim. I think we found that spark hopefully for next year. Yeah, I guess that's not really hit or miss, but Ethan, I do think that there is a level of excitement in this program right now that as someone who has spent the last couple decades being heavily invested in this, like a lot of y'all, I felt this level of excitement in a long time. So I'm super excited going into next year. Aaron Weinman says Ingram could have actually made a difference, but maybe Mertz was just flat out not good enough. Yeah, I mean, he's talking about Bobby Ingram now, offensive coordinator. We talked about this a lot. Like, was this poor offense? I mean, the ecosystem was just all broken. I don't think Ingram was good enough. I don't think Mertz was good enough. So, yeah, it was just a bad offense. I'm so ready to be done with it. Tony coming in with one of his misses. I thought Mertz was going to pull through and be good. A lot of people did. And to be fair, he was better this year. Mertz was better this year, but he's going to leave Madison having never come close to living up to what people had hoped he would become, right? And I think a lot of people were there with you on that one, Tony. Brian Lodahl said, hit for me. PC got lazy and finally let go. Him letting the recruiting department do the shambles and hiring retired players came back to bite him. Yes, I've been banging that drum. Yes, Brian. And again, I know it sounds ironic from a guy saying that Paul Chryst was also the third best coach in the conference coming into the year, but I have also for years been saying what's holding him back is this. He has to do the little things. You can't not let a recruiting department be rebuilt. You can't hire these Al Johnson types and come back and keep Chris Herring and move them around. Just poor hiring, poor recruiting, 100%. Let's keep going on some of the hits and misses here. Let's see. Zach Bartz comes in and says, I was very high in the Sean Lewis for offensive coordinator hype train in the Discord. Definitely happy with Longo and excited to see which positional coaches will come. Yeah, it's been reported that if Jim Leonhard had stayed, Sean Lewis, who ended up going to Colorado to be Deion's offensive coordinator, Sean Lewis was going to be the OC next year for Wisconsin. And I often think, and I'm curious, let's take a really quick side road here. Let's get off our highway of excitement and let's take exit whatever to this side road of reality. How excited would we have been if Jim Leonhard had been named the head coach, Sean Lewis was just announced as the offensive coordinator? I feel like, having never known that Luke Fickell was an option and Phil Longo was an option, we would have been pretty excited about that direction as well, right? I feel like we would have, because Sean Lewis is a legit new change at offense. Like, he is bringing in a passing offense, much like Phil Longo. He's not as established, but he was the head coach at a program coming to Wisconsin. I think where people would get a little trepidatious would be, he's just another Wisconsin guy. And in some way, shape, or form, it would have felt like some more of the same. So definitely interesting on that. Let's see if we got any more takes in here. Nick Polzine says the demeanor between Fickell and Chryst is night and day, 100%. And it's refreshing. I'm just going to say it. It is really, really refreshing. It was, let's be honest, seeing Jim Leonhard at the podium instead of Paul Chryst and just hearing someone talk coherently about the issues the team was having and how we plan on fixing them, that was a relief. That felt like a nice shower to wipe off all this blasé nonsense that Paul Chryst had been saying for years at the press conference. It felt like we finally had someone who understood what the problem is and we need to fix it. And Fickell at the press conferences and his demeanor, it's incredible. Now, again, it's the honeymoon season, right? Like, he's winning the honeymoon season, and now it still has to come to fruition. We have to see it on the field, but definitely curious how that's going to play out. This is going to be such a long offseason waiting for this to go. Preston Broadsner says, I was half expecting Lance. His miss was I was expecting Lance Leipold to get the head coaching job before he got a race at Kansas. Listen, a lot of people are on the Lance Leipold train there, but Luke Fickell is just such a home run. It's incredible. I am curious. Let's say Luke Fickell wasn't on the table. Listen, Jimmy Leonhard was a great candidate. Would he have pivoted to Lance? Like, had he had those conversations? I don't know. I'm very curious to see what Chris McIntosh has cards up his sleeve, So I don't know what would have happened if Fickell wasn't in play. Would he have gone after an Aranda, a Rule, a Leipold, or was it Fickell or Jim Leonhard? Right? And we'll never have those answers, but I'm curious. All right, so let's get one more miss here. Matt Gray says, I thought Ilver would have taken a big step forward this year. I did too. I really did too. Obviously, you need depth in the front court. He can shoot the ball. He's skilled. I think he's a little slower and a little less athletic than we had thought watching him on the court based on what we saw in the film coming into Wisconsin. But I really did think he would become a roster, a contributor, a role player. It just hasn't happened. Akefo says, I was correct about almost everything. OSU blowout, Graham Cracker. Wrong about going to a bowl game. Yeah, so Kefo, as usual, coming in. I love a Kefo, man. All right, let's pull it here because we're at 30 minutes. I try not to keep people too long, and really do appreciate everybody tuning in. I had some big take predictions for next year, but we're gonna save those to another show. Really do appreciate everybody tuning in, listening, building this community. I hope 2023 is going to be even better than 2022. I hope all of y'all had a great holidays, a great Christmas, a great New Year's. You're happy, healthy. And let's just keep it going on Wisconsin, and we'll talk again later.